All right, and welcome back to the Existentialists. My name is Tony B, and you are watching the return of Miguel. Hey, what's going on, Miguel? I need my friend Miguel to come back.
Hey Tony, can you
There
see
he
me?
is. He's back. Boom. Sorry for the delay in that image.
There we are. There we are. I see myself now on the Zoom because I'm watching through YouTube just to make sure everything seems fine.
Yes, and if you are watching us on Facebook, in the description box, you will see a link to our YouTube channel, The Existentialists. Please subscribe, share this video, comment, engage. And if you are on YouTube, thank you for your viewership. Make sure to like us on Facebook at The Existentialist. Miguel, my friend, my partner, is back for a momentary lapse in reality.
Shout out to Gerardo Nava, who's always there to like our videos, man. That dude is awesome.
Pretty great guy. Congratulations also to Mr. Nava for his future endeavor as he has graduated as a newly high school history teacher graduate. Yes.
Welcome to the real world. It's a lot worse than you envisioned. Which reminds me, where have I been this whole time, Tony? I was in a coma and now I'm awake. What can you tell me? Who's our new president?
The new president.
Or is there a long, strong out court battle and we won't know until that's all resolved?
Yeah, President-elect Biden has been officially declared the winner by the Electoral College, but it still isn't over for Donald Trump.
This is how he could still win.
There you go. Boom. All right.
No. Not to make fun of anything, but I just finished with finals. I have about a month off before I start school up again, and then I have to leave.
It's okay. We're going to enjoy the time that we have with you now. And for the viewers, I love engaging with conversation with people. That's the point of the existentialists, to really push narratives that counter the status quo. And Miguel joining me gives us the opportunity to continue our conversation on AOC versus Jimmy Dore. That is the debate going on Twitter, going on with YouTubers, the social media, the progressive movement, Jimmy Dore versus AOC versus Jimmy Dore. Miguel, I really want your input on this, just off the cuffs. What were your initial thoughts? And we'll explore more and continue the conversation from Tuesday.
Well, first I want to say thanks for bringing me back on. You're my better half of the existentialist, and I really enjoy those kind words you said about me. So, second, I think I've told you this before. 2020 radicalized me because if you remember watching our old videos, I used to be more libertarian, a little bit more conservative. Going to law school changed that, gave me new ways of thinking. And now 2020, with a friggin' pandemic and seeing what our politicians have done and just how screwed this country is, I have just swung the other way. So you've covered it, Medicare for all. I am full support of it now because this pandemic, it's way entirely too long. This country is too rich, it's too powerful to not afford the basic necessities for its citizens. Yes, all 300 million of us. So that's just the broad overview what I think. So let's get into it.
All right. Now, I apologize always to the audience every time. I'm a bit messy on the audio, but for the sake of conversation, I'll always be poking around just to make sure I mute and unmute when the other party member is speaking. Miguel, I hope you could do the same, as right now our audience is hearing an echo at possibilities because we do not have our headphones in. That is a little tip for any new up and coming YouTubers or vloggers, therefore. So yes, Miguel, thank you for that point. I always seen you as someone that just tries to come from a rational position on how to pursue policy. You never really wanted to admit to any radical hangings on positions of whether this is right or wrong, but you always were consistent about being more on the left, even if you had a libertarian mindset to cultural or ethical you name it, anything of ethics, culture, policy, you always wanted to come from a kind of sound mind, and you wanted to reason through that. That's what the point of the existentialist is. No, that is okay, because that is the argument that some progressives are using, like AOC. You need to have a sound mind when you're approaching such end goals. And AOC comes off as saying, we want a winning strategy. So let's not lose everything that we have, everything we're gaining. Let's not throw it to a losing cause. It's almost as if we are in a relationship and they're saying you have to choose your battles. But if it's a domestic violence relationship, I'm not sure if that merit still holds. Should we still be choosing our battles in a relationship where, now I'll be frank, I've been symbolic. The government, the Democratic Party, the elites in the Democratic Party, they are our husband. And us, the Democratic voters, we are the mistress, the wife, sorry. We've been taken advantage of, beaten. We've been harmed in so many ways by the leadership of the Democratic Party. But AOC is coming up, and other progressives, that we have to choose our battles in this type of relationship. That's where I'm coming from. And so I want to explore a known YouTuber by the name of Vaush. I'll let Miguel get the first stab at it, because Miguel brought this to my attention. Vaush is a socialist progressive on YouTube, and this video isn't going to be about him, but it'll be centered on Medicare for All battle, because Miguel noted how important it is. So Miguel, Vaush, what's going on? We're going to show some of his clips, but first lead us into this.
Muted. Okay, so very quickly, how do I explain it? He is one of those, like every movement needs a person like a Vaush. He's one of those that's brash. He is very intelligent. He's very good with theory. I went down, saw a bunch of his videos, and then I started noticing that there were some videos that I didn't like. But anyway, neither here nor there. He is, he did also cover this Jimmy Dore versus AOC infighting, if you want to call it, and his rationalizations for why Jimmy Dore was wrong, or the push to have a Medicare for All pushed through the House contingent on Pelosi's speakership. That video just rubbed me the wrong way, and it's what I've heard from centrists. It's also what I've heard from progressives who are not down for the cause, who don't want to rock the boat. And that's really what I want to explore, because when there's arguments about these big policy decisions, you do have to come at them with good faith and have good faith conversations about these topics. And unfortunately, what Vaush does in this video is not good faith, and it completely misses the mark. So, this will be a small class on logic and argument discussion with Tony.
And so I want to go into specifically what Vaush has said that might have triggered Miguel. It might have even upset me. I want to start with, so here's his thing. He's criticizing Jimmy Dore. Let's just hear what he has to say real quickly, because I didn't want to play. I'm not going to play it. He's calling Jimmy Dore a loser pretty much without saying it. He's saying the strategy is bad, and he starts listing his reasons to why it's bad. And I want to play this first one. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, please.
We should play the video first. Don't summarize it for people, because we end up strawmanning or poisoning the well. So let's just hear directly from Vaush, and then we'll go from there.
Vote. Now, here's what's actually going to happen if it gets put up for a vote. Are you ready for it? Right now, progressive Democrats are fighting for legitimacy within the Democratic Party. They've extracted some concessions, they've moved the Overton window left on certain points, but generally speaking, they're still a minority and they're still beholden to the interests of establishment Dems like Pelosi and what have you, right? Right. So, how do you think it's going to look to the majority of Democratic voters and to the media if the Squad and other progressive Democrats hold up Pelosi, who's generally supported in the Democratic Party, on the condition she put forward a bill that is statistically impossible to pass? That is an optics nightmare. And you know what's going to make it look even worse? What if Pelosi agrees and it gets like no votes? Doesn't that make us look like shit? I'm
going to stop there. Sorry, I was playing a little bit more. I want to stop there because that's why I was just briefing a little bit about how he started. He started with saying what Jimmy Dore was doing. And now he's listing, and we already went over it Tuesday. Miguel touched on it. I touched on it. The debate is, should AOC and the other progressives use their leverage, meaning use their votes? Nancy Pelosi needs their votes to be the next House Speaker, to remain the House Speaker. Should they use that by saying, we will not vote for you unless you put Medicare for all to a vote? So that's what Vaush starts off with. He calls Jimmy a political opposition to the progressive. And it's ironic that he claims to be on that side when he goes on Fox News. So, yes, you could check the Vaush video out yourself. Miguel, do you want to say something? Because I want to address the content of what he just said.
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to show, because that breakdown or that spiel that he has of Jimmy Dore, that's called poisoning the well, because without saying any policy that Jimmy Dore is expounding upon or any arguments, he says, oh, he's a Rush. What does he say? He's can you find it really? If you can find it quickly, we'll play it. But he basically says he's a progressive hater. He he goes on Fox News, talks with Tucker Carlson.
I got it right here.
Play it.
Jimmy Dore is making the argument that AOC and the Squad and all the progressive Dems are actually like controlled opposition pieces of shit, and they don't actually represent you, and they only care about being establishment Dems. For some reason, Jimmy Dore is insanely anti-progressive Democrat. It's crazy how he goes on Tucker Carlson and he makes pleas to Donald Trump and he defends Tulsi Gabbard, who's basically a Republican, and then he does nothing but shits on progressive Democrats. And still hasn't talked about Tulsi's transphobia. And it's almost like he's not a progressive at all and that he's controlled opposition himself. But whatever we're going to talk.
Okay, sorry for that delay again. That's his summary. He pretty much tries to smear Jimmy Dore because of other instances, other political moves that Jimmy Dore makes. Vaush is holding him accountable to those things. And that discredits Jimmy because he's an anti-progressive. Jimmy had AOC on his platform. They had a great interview. He often has progressive reporters on his platform. So it's a smear, and I didn't want to touch on it because for me, what's the point of that argument? I like Tulsi Gabbard. Go ahead, please.
First thing he says Jimmy Dore is a progressive. So what Vaush is doing there is called poisoning the well, because at this point, which will 3-4 minute mark, whatever it is, he's only played like 10 seconds or 10 or 15 seconds of Jimmy Dore's video, and that's all he plays throughout the whole video. And then he just strawmans the argument for Medicare for all, or pushing for Medicare for all, because Vaush is in favor of Medicare for all. He's just not in favor of pushing Pelosi to put it on the floor now. That's all he's not in favor of. But that's called poisoning the well. What he says is he's a progressive hater. First of all, that's your opinion of him. That's incorrect. Then he says he goes on Tucker Carlson. Yeah, but what does he do when he goes on Tucker Carlson? He advocates for bringing our troops home and for passing Medicare for all on Fox News when most likely Trump is watching Fox News at that time. That's called great advocacy. That's called pushing your side. That's called pushing your argument to a side who doesn't agree with you, who who you could get some people on your side. You want to take you don't want to preach to the choir. You want to take your argument to the other side and preach it in front of them. And then the last thing he says, Tulsi Gabbard. All right, fine, whatever. Who cares? Who gives a shit? That's a whataboutism. That's a red herring. That has nothing to do with this argument of Medicare for all and pushing Pelosi and AOC to put it on the floor. Okay.
Yeah, and I want to just quickly on that. I don't agree with the Elizabeth Warren stance, which is we should not go on Fox News. No. Go on to conservative outlets. Talk to people. Let them know your message. Share the narrative. Bernie Sanders would do it. Jimmy's going to do it. Progressives that do that, you reach out to a side of the aisle, yet you might be able to sway. People care about working class issues. The American people are on the side of Medicare for all. And that, go ahead, please. Because
remember, you don't make enemy with your friends. You don't make peace, idiot. You don't make peace with your friends. You make peace with your enemies. So you have to talk to your enemies, find that common ground, and beat them with better arguments. So do we want to go back to the first clip? Because let's get into it.
It's going to happen just because you put it up for a vote. Now, here's what's actually going to happen if it gets put up for a vote. Are you ready for it? Right now, progressive Democrats are fighting for legitimacy within the Democratic Party. They've extracted some concessions. They've moved the Overton window left on certain points. But generally speaking, they're still a minority and they're still beholden to the interests of establishment Dems like Pelosi and what have you, right? Right. So, how do you think it's going to look to the majority of Democratic voters and to the media if the Squad and other progressive Democrats hold up Pelosi, who's generally supported in the Democratic Party, on the condition she put forward a bill that is statistically impossible to pass? That is an optics nightmare. And you know what's going to make it look even worse? What if Pelosi agrees and it gets like no votes? Doesn't that make us look like shit? Pelosi ends up...
All right. No, enough of you, Vaush. So, look, I want to focus on the easy part first. The guy says the optics. He's worried about the optics of the problem. I think it goes without saying. Medicare for all getting a vote on the floor, it's not going to pass. And if it passed the House, it wouldn't pass the Senate. Biden wouldn't sign it. We would not get Medicare for all. That goes without saying. But it's good to bring it up. But he says the optics. Of course, we're going to lose the vote and Medicare for all won't happen. But you're talking about the media. What happens if the media sees this? They try to shit on progressives already enough as it is. And guess what? The American people are growing support for progressive causes and issues. And they love AOC. AOC has one of the biggest followings on Twitter. So the fact that the media opposition, which already exists, creates a problem for the progressive, dude, it already exists. What are you talking about?
And if you're talking about the optics of a bill dying on the floor, oh, I thought I was muted. That's not as bad as having the optics of the richest, most powerful country in the world not having, what is it, like 50 million of its people uninsured. So we don't, every other country, every other established first world country provides some form of single payer health insurance that covers all of its citizens by law, by default. The US doesn't have that. That, I think, is the worst optic, and that's what we need to work on. Another thing he says, no, Nancy Pelosi is very, or she not very, but she is generally supportive of the Democrat Party. That's the problem. Why should she be supportive of the party instead of the people? That's what we need. We need a leader who will push for these things for the people, not for the party. Because if you do it for the people, your party will win. It's about winning. It's not. It's about providing for the people so you win, and you're on the right side of the argument of history.
And that's where this was really ticks me off with what Vaush is saying here. First, we already know the media is against AOC and the progressives. They show it time and time again. You're worried about Nancy Pelosi's popularity? I don't get that. What are you talking about? I know plenty of voters, Democratic voters, progressives, centrists. I know plenty of people. They hate party leaders like Nancy Pelosi. They hate them locally. They hate them across. Yes, okay, fine. A majority are going to stand, but this is a growing movement. I think he just has a weak merit on that argument that this is a bad optics. The fight to do the right thing is being right because it's the right thing. It's the right time to do the right thing always, as MLK Jr. said. Oh, man, I just can't understand what's going on with this guy's response.
Just before we move on, I want to share something because you brought up MLK, right? And people will usually when you bring up MLK, even progressives will or Democrats will say you're overusing the argument. Like you don't sully the name of Martin Luther King to make your argument. All right, fine. Here's what we're gonna do. It might happen. People hate whenever you bring up Martin Luther King against their argument. I'm going to quickly share my screen. Do you remember our lovely friend, Elizabeth Warren? Yes. Okay. So Elizabeth Warren, very, if you don't know her history, she was a Harvard law professor. And she actually, while at Harvard, she worked with finances and more the finance industry. And her big thing, her crusade was regulating the financial market after the 2008 crash. So her history that comes with Barack Obama, I'll read this really quickly from Politico. And the title is, "Why Are You Pissing in Our Face? Inside Warren's War with the Obama Team." Elizabeth Warren was in the president's head. And from the summer of 2010 to 2011, the usually unflappable Barack Obama spent long hours agonizing over the then Harvard law professor, which is Elizabeth Warren. So much that his aides felt it was distracting from more pressing national concerns, according to interviews with numerous White House officials. Amid the financial crisis, Warren had become an unlikely star of the left with unambiguous moral outrage and an ability to explain complex financial topics in ways that made them fodder for dinner table conversation. If you skip down, where is it? She parlayed her newfound status into a push for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to be a part of the Dodd-Frank financial reform bill. As the legislation was about to pass in 2010, Warren met with David Axelrod, who you've interviewed before, Tony, and was blunt. She wanted Obama to nominate her to run the agency, or she would continue probing the Treasury's every move. She was vicious. If you guys want to go check out the article, but if it wasn't for Elizabeth Warren just pushing and probing, being a thorn in the side of Barack Obama after the crash, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau would not have been put into place. And for people who say, well, what's the big deal? This is an article from January of 2020, when the Supreme Court was going to pick up the Celia case. Can't say that name. We've talked about it here before. But this is the important part. Since the Bureau was passed in 2011, I think, the Bureau has recovered more than $12 million for consumers since its creation. So when you get those opportunities for some class action lawsuits that you might be a part of, let's say Uber or some company that has defrauded investors, or some company, and the Financial Protection Bureau will help people recover some of those funds. That's because Elizabeth Warren pushed for it. She wasn't nice. She didn't say, I wonder what the optics are going to be for this. She pushed, and Obama, I'm pretty sure he hated her. But, I didn't share my screen for this. I'm sorry. So this article from CNBC in January of 2020, the Supreme Court was going to pick up a case regarding the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And this note down here, since its inception, since I think 2011, the Bureau has recovered more than $12 billion for consumers. That's money back into the pockets of Americans. And again, she didn't worry about the optics. She didn't say, oh, I maybe I should be nice to the president or to leadership. No, she friggin' fought it. And she wasn't even in the Senate back then. She wasn't an elected member just yet of Massachusetts. So pushing politicians, I'm sorry, Vaush, but it works. It actually yields results. That's one exhibit. And I know you were talking about MLK. So Tony, please take over. I am done hearing my voice.
Yes, of course. I love your voice. Elizabeth Warren challenged a optics issue, challenged a beloved Democratic leader by the name of Barack Obama. And the media was against her. The optics didn't matter in that scenario. To Vaush's point, to be fair, he does make the case that big picture ideas, which he supports like Medicare for all, aren't the same as the attainable battles. And we're going to go more into what he's saying. It's similar to what AOC is saying, because I don't want to spend all day on this Vaush guy. I watch his content. Check him out if you're interested. But this is just a damnation of what he's saying. And he talks about stuff like political efficacy. If you're not familiar with political efficacy, what it means is if the higher the political efficacy, it means that the voter has more confidence and trust in the American government, that the government can get things done. So if I have high political efficacy, I believe that my representatives are going to work for me. I trust they're going to get things done to improve my life. That's a good place to understand where efficacy is. People with low efficacy, they don't trust government for a damn thing. So he tries to use this argument. And I want to show this small clip about why that matters more than this random attack, and then how he characterizes it as a random attack. So let's pull up Vaush in this scenario when he's talking about why it matters more to consider political efficacy. Okay, so let me just boom.
Passed, you know? The problem, fundamentally, the problem with this isn't a matter of how aggressively you're willing to challenge the establishment. It's a matter of how effectively you're willing to do so, okay? I feel like I have this argument all the time with people who say they vote or they make political decisions from principle. Could it pass without abolishing private insurance? Well, Medicare for All is abolishing private insurance. Option, which is what Biden is advocating
okay.
for. Biden is
So that's very simply what he's saying, that this willingness to attack free will, to just go, it is against an effective strategy. And that's what AOC is saying. AOC is essentially saying the same thing. We should think more effective. What is going to actually give us a tangible victory? Vaush is echoing that talking point by saying that we're just using an aggressive willingness. It's just we're aggressively trying to go out there and act as a political body. We're just trying to act without a clear strategy for victory. And so he's now saying voting by principle. He talks about how this is an issue. And there's a clip which I don't even know if I want to play.
Here, that talking about political efficacy, pushing for things you can get. That's gaslighting, and that's directing attention away from what you should be fighting as well. Because, okay, for example, one of those things, Vaush, he doesn't say it in the video, but I'm pretty sure he would say, oh, you should be fighting for $15 minimum wage. First of all, I think we've talked about this, you and I, but at this point, $15 minimum wage is just too low, because you should tie minimum wage to inflation, which would be around 20, a little bit more. Go ahead.
Let's be clear. Vaush does mention $15 minimum wage in the video. He says that's an attainable goal because Nancy Pelosi's for it already. Biden's already for it. So that is something attainable. But the issue with that is, if they're already for it, why do you have to get that from them? That's not leverage anymore. They're already there. Get something that they're not there yet on.
That's exactly what I wanted to share. What I wanted to share was AOC saying in her tweet, in contrast, you can use leverage to push for things that can happen and change lives. A $15 minimum wage, which has been brought to the House floor and has passed the House floor, hasn't gone to the Senate. So why don't you fight for it in the Senate if it can get passed, if it's attainable? And let's push in, you know what, let's push in a higher minimum wage, let's push in Medicare for all, and let's push UBI on to the House. Let's imagine if all those things, if those three things passed, the Democrats would win the next 20 years worth of elections everywhere, all across the US. Why wouldn't you want that? Oh, so anyway, this is just gaslighting. But the bigger picture, which you should be careful, because Vaush does not do this. He attacks the principal idea of the argument that Jimmy Dore has and Justin Jackson up here and Aaron Mate. He attacks the general idea without really delving out the arguments that are being said there. So what he does is he strawmans, and he just, it's a horrible thing. So at the end, I'll give my personal opinion of Vaush once we've gone through his arguments, not before, like how he does with Jimmy Dore. Do you want to share something else, Tony?
Yes. So I want to transition. I want to stay on why the principle matters. So he says this: principle only matters if you win. Now he says this after he describes, and I want to show it, but it's like a 3-minute long description. He kind of describes, if you remember, Bart Simpson when he fights Lisa, and Lisa says, "I'm going to be kicking my legs like this, and if I hit you while moving forward, it's your own fault." And he says, well, imagine the progressives being Bart. Bart Simpson does the windmill thing with his arms. And Vaush is literally doing this like me. He says that that's what Jimmy Dore progressives are like. That's what me and Miguel are like. We're Bart Simpson, and we're just going to give up all our energy. We're going to swing every single second of our lives until we hit our opponent. And so we're going to exert all this energy, and until we hit them, that's when it counts for us. But we didn't go in with a good strategy because now we're tired. We hit them from a distance, and now we're going to get closer, and we just exhausted ourselves, which is why he claims it. If it's about principle, you're just swinging blindly without a clear strategy to win. So it doesn't matter. Principle doesn't matter if you win. This is what I want to show in this video, where he talks about aesthetic of progress versus actual progress. Let's see what Vaush.
There are people who idealize the aesthetic of progress by doing as much as you can as immediately as you can. But if the outcome of that effort is a setback, is a loss, you are trading the aesthetic of progress for the reality of a setback. For
Miguel, I want you to start off on this. So what he's saying is that the aesthetic of progress means our random actions, right? That we're acting on principle because we know it's the right thing to do. By acting on that, we're trading it in for a setback, meaning we end up losing more by using these random attacks. Remember, I talked about the domestic affair, the relationship. We should choose our battles, is what he's saying, because by choosing your battles, you're more likely to gain actual victories instead of the aesthetic of battling, meaning, oh, look, it's all political theater. We're protesting, but we're not really getting anything out of it. That right there says a lot about how he reveals himself and how he's trying to paint the progressives like AOC, how they're revealing themselves.
I don't say someone should have told that to Elizabeth Warren. Hey, you know what? Get what you can. Don't worry about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That will come in 20, 30 years. Get what you can now. You know, don't worry about the principle that you're holding, this bounding. You're not going to get it. Um, the other thing is, so Vaush's argument there, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is if you cannot get wins, it's not worth having as a principle or having as a battle. As would you agree with? Would you characterize that as correct or not? I think you can say you said it better than I have.
The principle only matters if you win. So he uses this idea that you should care about what's going to work. Not hang. You can have principles, but don't use that as your guiding light. Principles only matter if you win. You should be doing what's going to work to make your principle matter.
Now, this is going to be a little edgy. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this, Tony? If the principle only matters if you win, then the Abolition Party should have shut the fuck up when Dred Scott was decided in 1857 that African American slaves were 3/5 of a person and they were not American citizens, not giving them rights, not giving them the rights that Americans deserve, right? But of course, the abolitionists kept fighting. Now, this is not the best case scenario because there's a friggin' civil war that happened just 4 years after this, right? We don't need our politics to get as nasty as a civil war. But if defeat means that you abandon your principles, then you never had principles to begin with, because principles are unwavering and you continue fighting for them until you get them. Here's another one. Who also should have quit once he was defeated? You know who else?
Ooh, Miguel.
Nelson Mandela. Guy was in prison for 20 odd years, I think 27. But as soon as he was in prison, he should have given up. That argument of you're not going to win on the first go around, that we get that, that's fine. But you have to keep fighting for what you believe in, for you what you know is right. And so I think we can end this discussion about Vaush because I don't want to keep talking ad nauseum about him. But
let's get this last clip in because it's addressing exactly what you are saying, and that is that the people, they don't want you to fight the Democratic establishment. So let's see this.
I don't care about the aesthetic, and I don't care about the aesthetic of AOC and the squad holding the Democrats in Congress hostage over a meaningless a posturing vote that will only serve to make us look ineffective and in opposition to the party. Which, and by the way, you don't want us to look in opposition to the party, because if we look like we're in opposition to the party, Democrat voters aren't going to give us the time of day.
That is hysterical for me. Right now, the Democratic voters don't want us in opposition to the party. I'm sorry. The only reason why Biden is the next president-elect, right now he's a president-elect, is because so many voters stomach the idea that we rather have Biden than Trump. So there are enough. We're expanding the electorate, Vaush. We're expanding to the point where we do want opposition to the party because they're not with the American people. When it comes to the issues, Medicare for all, the legalization of marijuana, a living wage, finances and politics, money and politics, these are big issues that the voting base, the party is at. But as we'll go into the AOC conversation with Jeremy Scahill of the Intercept, it's very revealing how this culture makes us believe that the base of the party is actually with these conservative Democrats, when in fact it's not. We do want people to challenge the party. We want an opposition, and AOC and the progressives are that opposition. So I'll leave it at that, and we're going to transition. Miguel, you want to get some last words on Vaush?
I do. A few things. I should have written them down, but what he says, the aesthetics, like it's not the aesthetics. So what the argument, which he never contends, he kind of contends with it early on in the video, But he says you can just ask the members of Congress who's in favor of Medicare for all, who's against it. There's the co-sponsor list, which is I think 118 Democrats who are in favor of Medicare for all. But once you put it to a vote, you'll see who actually is for it and who actually is against it. So what you do with that voting record is now you take that to the districts and you say, hey, I'm running against your incumbent representative because during a pandemic that killed at least 302,000 people, Americans, your elected representative was against Medicare for all. He was against giving you health care when you lost your job, when you couldn't pay the bills, when you had to stand in food lines for hours on end. He was against giving you health care. Now, you do want the party to be pushed. You do want to be in opposition of the party if the party is not giving or providing for the needs of its citizens. Let me share some interesting stats with you. Tony, did you know, Tony, that as early as or as far back as April of 2020, mind you, this was just when the pandemic was ravaging through our country, 69% of voters support Medicare for all. If you divide this up among party lines, it shoots up a little bit higher for Democrat voters, and it just very, very, very slowly or very, very minimally goes lower for Republican Party at the Republican Party. But 68%, 69, here is how you divide it. See, among Republican voters, it's 52%, 46%, just a little bit underwater, what have you. But that's a pretty big number within the Republican voter base. If we come over here, Congress's approval is 18%. If you're kidding me, if this piece of legislation is more popular than Congress, like, you have it all backwards. It's completely upside down. You do want to go against the party because the voters want single payer health care. They don't want Congress. They don't give a shit about Congress. And for you to hold water for Congress, that just shows me that you're what MLK said, the white moderate, when he said, I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in his strike towards freedom is not the KKK, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order, like Vaush, than to justice, which is providing the basic needs for American citizens through what is arguably the toughest time that we have faced in the last 100 years. So now that we've heard his arguments, I will say Vaush, very good guy. Theoretically, debater, he's brilliant. I still watch his videos to this day. When it comes to policy, he's a fucking idiot, and I'm sorry. He's completely off base. He holds water for the Democratic Party. I know he says he's a socialist. He's not. He's a white moderate. He's fine. He's making money on YouTube. He will be fine through all of this. It doesn't affect him. He hasn't lost his income. What was I gonna say? Unfortunately, people like that do hinder the movement for a better America. He is that white moderate. He is a vote blue no matter who. I know you and I have argued this, and it has its merits. For me, the roadblock, the obstacle for progress isn't the Republican Party. It's people within the party like Vaush, like Pelosi, like AOC that don't get us at least to the starting line of the race. We're still on the bleachers with these guys. Like, what are we gonna do there? We have to get at least to the starting line so we can get to the finish line.
And that addresses his political efficacy argument that the people want to have faith and trust in AOC, in the progressives. So if the AOC and the progressives do this, they're losing political efficacy. But in fact, Miguel and I are arguing the opposite. Their political efficacy would rise if they took this aesthetic stance, because the American people want them to fight for their lives like they really matter. They don't want the same BS. So with that being said, if you are watching We Are the Existentialists, please share, comment, like, subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow. We're going to take a transition from here And we want to go into the AOC Intercept interview with Jeremy Scahill. Is AOC the white moderate as well that MLK said we should be worried about? And this is going to be a slight defense of AOC, looking at some of the things she said, but a continuous scrutiny of how her maneuvering in her answers with Jeremy Scahill can mean great things, but it can also mean furthering the status quo. So if you're listening, please, once again, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to pull up Miguel. I'm going to get your comment on this. This is AOC being asked by Jeremy Scahill if the Democratic leadership of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer should end. Should their reign of the Democratic Party come to a final end? Let's check this out.
More conservative than even they are, willing to kind of fill that void. And so what I'm looking at right now is what steps I'm afraid that that is the situation that we're dealing with right now.
Isn't this grounds, though, to take a stand and say, no, I'm sorry, Nancy Pelosi should not be the speaker and Chuck Schumer should not be the leader?
Well, I do think that we need new leadership in the Democratic Party. I think one of the things that I have struggled with, I think that a lot of people struggle with, is the internal dynamics of the House has made it such that there's very little option for succession, if you will, and I think that one could just, I think it's easy for someone to say, oh, well, why don't you run? But the House is extraordinarily complex and I'm not ready. It can't be me. I know that I couldn't do that job.
Sorry for the mess up at the beginning, but so in context, I should have given a little context. Jeremy Scahill is asking about the Democratic leadership failing to pass meaningful stimulus during a COVID-19 lockdown. Because Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leadership failed to give more stimulus money, only $1,200, it was an insult to the American people, while $4 trillion went to the corporate sector and the banks. So that's the context. He's saying since they failed on that front, don't they just need to be like shut up and sit down? Don't they need to be told that? And AOC is saying, yeah, but there's an issue. There's an issue about how we rein in new leadership. The structure of the Democratic Party is so broken that we can't even break away from the norms. I want to play another clip, and then Miguel, I want to bring you in because then she's asked to clarify. She's asked to clarify specifically about Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. So let's just take a look at that again.
But can't get $1,200 to suffering
Yep.
Americans. And,
Yeah.
and I know you've been on the right side of this, but I'm asking, are you ready to say Pelosi and Schumer need to go?
I mean, I think so. I mean, and the question is, like this year, for example, the hesitancy that I have is that I want to make sure that if we're pointing people in a direction, that we have a plan. And
Okay, so I'm gonna stop there because then it's a good interview, and there's much more I want to show you what she's saying. There's no plan, right? AOC admits it. She can't be that next House Speaker. She's not ready. She doesn't feel competent. People would love that, but she's not there yet. She wants more experience, more knowledge base, more wisdom. And she says the progressives don't have a plan. So this is where it comes down to, where later they talk about Jimmy Dore, just to clarify. She's saying in clear words, I'm afraid to go forward because of the conservative party, the Democrats being so conservative that the progressives can't fill the power vacuum. If Nancy Pelosi is moved, the progressives aren't ready to take over. This is kind of what Vaush is saying. we're losing, we're setting ourselves back, that Nancy Pelosi is the most progressive to be the House Speaker because she has the most support.
Okay, so the argument, again, I'm gonna have to ask you to summarize it. The argument is if we push for Medicare for all, the argument is if we push Pelosi to put Medicare for all and she doesn't, and we vote her out, someone else who's more conservative than her will come into the speakership, correct? That's the argument?
She hasn't gotten there yet, but essentially she's just saying that we are wise to stay in our lane. I'm paraphrasing because she's not saying it, but because of the way the Congress is structured, the Democratic Party leadership is structured, progressives have no plan to go forward if they force Nancy Pelosi to try to put Medicare for all on the vote. She's saying there's no plan going forward. That's why she's kind of reiterating she doesn't like the idea of doing that because there's no after plan.
Well, I think that's a generous steelman of her argument. That's good. The plan is to force Pelosi to put it on the floor. If it fails, it's most likely going to fail. Let it fail. That's fine. We'll use that going forward to elect more progressive Democrats into the House. And if Pelosi doesn't put it, you won't vote for her. Well, guess what? Pelosi's not going to let that happen. She will not allow her speakership to be taken away from her. The power to either put Medicare for all on the floor or let Nancy Pelosi lose, that's all in Nancy's hands. That's not in the progressive hands. That's not in the hands of the Democratic, the Blue Dogs or the Dixiecrats, whatever they're called. That is in the hands of Nancy Pelosi, and her ego is so large. Pelosi has already said this is going to be her last term as Speaker of the House. She will want her last speakership to go out on her own terms. She's not going to want it to end at the hand of the Progressive Caucus. Okay, so it's win-win all around because Pelosi is not going to let anyone else dictate how she retires. She wants to retire as Speaker of the House, and by goddamn it, she will. I say you push her, and you'll get to that point where they'll put her on the floor. It's gonna lose. You take that list, you take that to the voters, and you get more progressive people. So then down the line, you do have the power to affect change in Democratic leadership. That's the other thing. Democratic leadership works on seniority. Okay, it works that way instead of who is going to be the most effective leader. Whereas the Republicans, I mean, they had Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan wasn't even, he was Speaker of the House, wasn't he? Yes, he was. He was Speaker of the House, and he wasn't even there longer than some of their reps.
So yeah, I just want to say, because the point that she's making is she does not want to take this opportunity to challenge the power vacuum or power, and then suddenly Nancy Pelosi's gone. Who else is going to take over? It's going to be a more organized conservative Democrat, which will be worse than Nancy Pelosi. That's kind of where she's coming from. And then there's another more comment she goes into, but that argument, right? Yes, there will be worse than Nancy Pelosi. There could be, but what does it matter if we can't get Medicare for all? What does it matter? It reveals the Democrats' true colors, in my opinion.
But that's what I'm saying. Pelosi will not let that happen. She cares too much about her legacy. She cares too much about going out on her own terms. She just cares too much about being the Speaker of the House. She will not let someone more conservative than her or someone more liberal than her getting the speakership. So that argument is moot because it's not going to happen.
Now, there's this other point she's making. I'll concede. Yes, Pelosi seems like if she's pushed far enough, she's going to hold on to her legacy and she's not going to crumble. Her seniority and her amazing fundraising abilities with her amazing donors really matters in the Democratic Party. She has seniority. She's 80 years old or something. And she brings in a lot of money to the Democratic Party. But let's see what else AOC had to say to Jeremy Scahill of The Intercept. Okay, so this is what she says. So the way I look at it is, do we do this to get a floor vote that will get questionable media coverage that will not pass? Okay, the first one, questionable media coverage. They're against you. What do you talk questionable? The progressives challenge Nancy Pelosi's leadership and the media is mad at them. They're always going to be mad at you. I don't get it. That will not pass. Of course it won't. That will last kind of a day. Plus, additionally, as a legislator from the left, I do take my leadership and guidance from people's movements. And those movements have been at the forefront of the fighting for Medicare for all, have not made this demand. That's the point I want to stick on. She takes her guidance from movements. And the Medicare for all fighters on the forefront of the battle, they haven't said this. They haven't backed this idea. So, Miguel, I want to get your input. She's creating a hierarchy of power. She is invoking, which I understand, and I want to argue about this. I understand where she's coming from, but it seems that there is a commanding source. And the movements, they are the source of authority. And if they're not saying it, it's almost moot. I just want to take that from you. But even if she goes on, even if it was just a vast popular demand, I think it would be something worth considering as well. So she tries to save herself. Well, the movements, the commanding, the authority, the source of authority hasn't said anything. But, if a lot of people said it, we needed to do it, I consider it. Miguel.
Was there a question in there somewhere? My thoughts are that you use the word moot, and I like that word. I use it a lot in law school. So stop using my words. I think we should push Tony to go to law school. How about that? Okay,
stick to the topic.
All right, no, but specifically, ask me the question again, because I need the question to be a little more specific.
Just your thoughts on this idea. What she had said was she follows her guidance from movements. So I understand that, right? Those are the people on the ground advocating. They're activists. That's the political work they do to push policy and ideas and narratives. Those people matter. The movements matter. But for me, a big part of the movement is the movement wants to inspire people, convince people, gain the trust, increase the political efficacy of people, right? They want to do that. And so when you got Jimmy Dore and other progressives that love the Medicare for All movement, they almost become an impediment, a limb. They become a limb of the movement. They're not the movement in themselves.
Appendage, the word you're looking for.
Appendage. I don't know what I said. I said impediment. What the hell? No, an appendage, right? They become an appendage of the movement. Just like Trump's movement. There were appendages, even if they weren't the real organizers. They still matter. But I just want to get your thoughts on this kind of, she referenced a source of authority. Well, the fighters on the ground of the movement, they're not demanding this of me. I'm not trying to mock her, but it seems like she's going to a source of authority while also saying, well, we might consider if just a lot of people cared that weren't in the movement. Go.
Blaming the movement for not pushing her, that's a way to obfuscate, because she ran on Medicare for All. She ran on single payer. Cori Bush has done that. Marie Newman, Squad. If you're running on this, we expect you to push for this once you're in Congress. And if you don't, we will push you, and we don't want pushback because we're telling you, what is this? This is the movement. And do you really need a movement to tell you, hey, there's 14 million, 15, 20 million uninsured people right now because they've lost employment? Do you really need that to smack you in the face and know, hey, maybe I should fight for this in this time of need.
Okay. So that's where we're at with that argument. Now, I just want to say that I already said it. You respect the leaders of a movement. You respect their voices. But yes, I feel you. I feel like she just dodged, and the movement, they follow also what the people are following. The movement isn't just, oh, we have some automatic authority. No, movements move with people as well, because that's who they're trying to gain the trust of. Here she is making a solid argument of what else could be done, because that's what her original thing is. It's not that she doesn't want to use her leverage. She just doesn't think that it should be for this cause because it might lose. So I'm going to pull up some of her suggestions. I'll keep my mic on because we're not sharing audio anymore. This is part of her interview. I highlighted in blue. One thing that we can do is actually work on repealing some of the structural rules that would prevent Medicare for All from actually getting passed, floor vote or not. And one of those things is an obscure House rule that is extremely influential and significant, known as PAYGO. She goes on saying PAYGO is basically austerity politics that has been baked into the very rules of House of Representatives, which is saying that any expenditure that a bill has must have a tax increase or a spending cut for it to even be accounted in legislation. If not, then the executive office gets it and they decide the tax spending, the tax cuts, or the spending increase. I said that vice versa. But so she is making a point. Look, why don't we try to get this? Because even if we got to vote on Medicare for All, big picture ideas might still be passed on. See, even if we repeal PAYGO, or we can't repeal PAYGO. So she's conceding now a little bit. PAYGO is important because, let me just try to sum it up because I want to get Miguel in on this. If you have a big bill like universal basic income, free college, Medicare for all, that bill automatically, because of the PAYGO rule, you have to have a tax increase written in on it or a spending cut. And if you don't have that, it kind of hurts the legislation of trying to move that forward. She's saying, okay, let's try to repeal that. And even if we can't, we can also secure waivers, PAYGO waivers on Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, and more. Frankly, it's how conservative Democrats are able to get all this defense spending to begin with. So she's saying there's something valuable to obtain instead of the floor vote. And by obtaining that, it makes the path towards getting Medicare for all easier and more successful. So she's coming back hard with that. That's the wonkiness, right, of politics, the stuff that people don't talk about. And she's talking about it here. Miguel, thoughts?
That is something called, what is it? Oh, hold on. Is it a red herring? I think, yeah, it's diverting attention away from, it's the false dichotomy. She says either we can work on Medicare for all and let it fail, or we can work on these structural rules and then get to Medicare for all. Why can't you do both? So then you condition Medicare for all and PAYGO together on the vote for Pelosi, saying, hey, we'll vote for you, but you got to get rid of PAYGO and you got to put Medicare for all on the House floor, and then we'll vote for you. You can condition three things. Put UBI on the House floor. You know what? Give everyone a spaceship. Condition that as well. You can condition whatever you want, because Pelosi is not gonna want to lose that speakership. I'm sorry, but I just hate that. That's gaslighting from AOC. That's her saying, you don't understand how Congress works. Yeah, but we understand how power works. And if you're strong enough to say, hey, Pelosi, you want this vote, you gotta come get it. She will come get it. She will crawl to you.
And you know what? Like, I love this idea about how you just said it. How about consolidating all these demands? Because why am I going to just want a House floor vote? I agree with you. Let's get it all. Fight for all of it, because it includes Medicare for all and every single battle that needs to be included. I don't know. I kind of want to defend her, but I'm still upset because what happened to transparency? If that's something that you could fight for, why not be transparent about it? Why not, as a progressive caucus or progressive members that actually are progressive for us, why not come out and use your platforms to say, hey, this is what we're looking for? You only bring, well, she brought it up before in the past, but she should continue bringing it up. So I want to go into some last points that she makes, because she says, yes, it's pretty much hypocrisy. It's a huge reason why she ran for office, she says. So the hypocrisy of trying to have transition of Democratic leadership, she's showing it herself. Let me just show it. And we're just gonna play through these quotes, and we're gonna end it here, okay? But you guys, this is an important article. You can actually hear the whole audio intercept with Jeremy Scahill, AOC. And so she says, yes, they need to be removed. The answer is we need to shift power. We need to make sure that we have transition of power in the leadership of the Democratic Party, because I think that the hypocrisy you point out is so animating. Frankly, it's a huge reason why I ran for office, because the hypocrisy can be so rage-inducing. Yes, it can. And she's showing her hypocrisy. Okay. But she tries to be more elaborate. She's not this kind of just quote person. She says there's a deeper cultural issue, and I think she has the same cultural issue, Miguel. It's not just elected Democrats, but it also seems like the Democratic electorate seems to believe that conservative Democrats are the ones that win. It's almost as though our electorate is tricking itself. Electorate is tricking itself. It's like we all know that we want something different, but we're afraid of losing. Or at least we're told that if we indulge what we want, we're going to lose. So she's pointing out a fundamental flaw in fighting for what's right, because there's a culture of people that don't want to lose battles. So they stop themselves from doing what they want and what is right. She's admitting that there's a culture of that, and she is now a participant in that culture.
So that's why voters have to start thinking, hey, maybe we should limit AOC to just this term and vote someone else who will be unwavering and will not become one of those complacent Democrats. Because I know a lot of people stan her because she's, you go girl, she's strong. She's very good on Twitter. She's been on Twitch. But if at the end of the day, she's going to become like the Democrat that she defeated, she's useless. You either die the hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Okay, and you know why I'm so this is why, like I look at Cori Bush. She's lived through that poverty. I know AOC also has. She was a bartender, and Cori Bush, she's been evicted. She's lived in her car. She's been through the gauntlet, and that lady, she's gonna kick ass in the House. And that's why I'm also so excited. I hope Nina Turner wins the election in Ohio, because she's a lady who will not waver to congressional pressures or money interest or mama bear, as AOC calls Nancy Pelosi. So I'm sorry, but if you're becoming that way, you are useless to the movement. You are not going to do what got you there. You're not holding to your principles. And you're never going to get those victories.
Remember, principles only matter if you win, Miguel. No. Okay. Okay.
Hey, 1960s, while being arrested at the kitchen counters in Alabama, or Montgomery, Alabama, I'm pretty sure MLK said, you know what? What am I doing these principles for? I'm not winning. F it. I'll go home and be a pastor. No, he kept fighting.
And I think we're on the same page. I agree with you. What she's doing is really just kind of folding on something that's so easy. Even she acknowledges that we have to bring the heat. We have to fight. I like AOC. A lot of people do. This isn't going to be the moment people like really turn away from her, but they're going to lose trust in her to do the right thing at the right time. Playing this game. And she acknowledges that the leadership is all messed up. She says structurally it has to change. Well, publicize those things more and get your colleagues to publicize it with you. our newly elected officials, Mary Newman, and my current representative, Jesus Chuy Garcia, they should be vocal too. Now, Chuy isn't a character to be too vocal about things. He has good ideas. He's not a personality. Mary Newman, I'm excited about.
No, F that. Fuck that. Chuy Garcia, he's a big fish in Chicago. He's a big fish in Illinois politics. He throws his weight around in Illinois. Now you're gonna get to Congress, and you're just not gonna do anything. Where's he been on this? Where's he been on UBI? Where's he been on Medicare for All? Because on paper, he says he'll support these things on paper, but he's not out there pushing. Ooh, Tony, can you get in contact with Chuy? I'm pretty sure you have him on speed dial. So Chuy Garcia, Marie Newman, Cori Bush, the Squad, AOC, Ro Khanna. Who else am I missing from the House? All these progressives, like they got to get their ass lit on fire behind this idea to condition their vote for Pelosi speakership on bringing Medicare for All on the House floor.
I agree, and now what happens? This hurts them in some credibility. We're always going to hold it over their heads. We don't forget. The voter doesn't. So we hope that if they're not going to do this, AOC and the progressive voters for Nancy Pelosi, those members of Congress, they got to tell us what their leverage is at the very least. What are you getting? Are you getting rid of the leadership rule, which is really not a written rule, that in order to get leadership positions, you have to raise all this money and you have to have seniority up the ass? Like, can you get rid of those rules? Maybe it should be competence, integrity, knowledge base, not just how long I've been here. Maybe they put and be transparent, put it all on the table. And we stop having this fight with them about what we want them to do, because they're individuals. I think it's okay to disagree. It definitely is. But something so easy like putting a vote for Medicare for All, it just seems like they're not losing anything. Nancy Pelosi doesn't like you. The media doesn't like you. The conservative Democrats don't like you. No matter what you do, they're going to come after you. I want them to be in leadership positions. I just think they could do more. And I agree with that proposition. Miguel, I'm going to let you have the last word on this. I feel like we wrapped it up, but what do we do now? Go.
No, I'm actually I'm okay with ending it how you ended. That was perfectly well said, Tony. I cannot say anything better than that. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you for viewing us. We really appreciate the support. We want to expand and grow our content to many more people. We want to inform the electorate. The idea is to discuss these topics, to apply pressure, ask the hard questions, and even challenge us. We don't want to be wrong, but come and tell us we're wrong. Comment. Make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on Facebook, our link for our YouTube channel, The Existentialists, right there. Click it, subscribe, follow us on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for more releases of content video in the future. We really hope and look forward to having more of Miguel as long as we have him, because he is the founder of The Existentialists. So, Miguel, thank you for coming on. Everyone at home, you're wonderful. Co-founder. Yes. Have a Merry Christmas and a happy a new year. All right, let me just give you this.
Wake up, wake up, wake up. Welcome to Shy Society. I wake up in the morning.
Tony, you still there? Tony. Tone Meister.
My bad. We got someone on Vaush. I guess they're already a listener. The live stream comment. They said, I'm off the Vaush room myself. This convo was nice to see. I like your view here. Woo! But I have to end that.